Right, what's going on, y'all? I'm gonna make this video. This is going to be my favorite players, and that word favorite is gonna be used loosely here, but that's what I'm gonna call it to make the title easier to understand. My favorite players on each Major League Baseball team during the 1960s, the golden age of baseball. Now, of course, not every team that is in existence today was in existence at that time. And so for those teams, starting with, as you can see here, the Seattle Mariners, I'm going to just give you my favorite player from those teams. So we're going to start with the Seattle Mariners. And I had a couple of different guys I could pick here. Ultimately, I decided with Kyle Seager. The first Mariner I really heard of when I was getting into baseball, and we share a birthday, November 3rd. Pretty simple. Next one, Washington Nationals. I decided for this one to go with Josh Willingham. Not necessarily the best player the Nationals have ever had, but again, these are my favorites. Willingham, if you've watched any of my videos in the past, I've mentioned that this past spring, during my high school baseball season, I got to go all the way to the second round of the Alabama high school postseason, and the visiting team, Mars Hill Bible School, was the visiting team, and Josh Willingham is their skipper, their manager, their head coach. So he was there. So that's why I selected him. Miami Marlins are next. Not too rich of a history. Obviously, you got the 2 World Series championships, and Miguel Cabrera, I think even Ivan Rodriguez, though I may be wrong with him, were some good players. But again, I'm just choosing my favorites, not necessarily the best, although this one is one of the best in Marlins history. Giancarlo Stanton. He was the blue chip bopper, the best player for the Marlins team that was coming up in 2016, 2017. Had a lot of really good players. Him, Danny Hechavarria, D. Gordon, Jose Fernandez, and some others that are just slipping my mind right now. But after Jose Fernandez was killed in the boating accident, which you can see by the number 16 there, they wore that in honor of him, that pretty well ended that. So, well, that and Derek Jeter taking over the team, those both ended that team's hopes of staying together. The Texas Rangers. Now, this team is a little interesting. They missed out on the golden age just by a couple years. I mean, technically, the team that they was in the golden age, but not the Rangers themselves. In spring training, they did wear a wool uniform, and you see that Rangers word mark right there. That's what was on them. And so they looked pretty good in spring training. My favorite player for them, this is a guy who was my runner-up for the Mariners, and I've decided to make him my favorite for the Rangers. Alex Rodriguez. One of the greatest players of all time. You look at his numbers, they don't lie. And his off-the-field fame solidifies his name even more so. You know, obviously you're a big name when you make it big on and off the field. The Arizona Diamondbacks. Again, not a huge, long history. Do have a World Series title against the Yankees. But for this player, I went with somebody I knew of from a different team that they played for after the Diamondbacks. This is going to be Justin Upton. I remember when the first year I was watching baseball, 2013, that's when he was traded to the Braves along with his brother. His brother didn't do jack, but Justin did. Him and Evan Gattis were launching home runs every night. It seems like they were just on it. They were on a tear. And the Braves had the best record in baseball for a little while there at the beginning of the season. And Justin Upton was a big reason why. Colorado Rockies, another team, not a big history. They don't have any World Series titles. They've been once. But other than that, not too much to their name. A couple of players pick here. Todd Helton was one I considered, but a general rule for this video, I'm trying not to pick the best players on these teams unless they are just my favorite for whatever reason. I want to try to give some attention to some lesser-known guys, so that's what this is. Dexter Fowler. I remember getting his baseball card. I remember him, and he was a center fielder. He was fast, similar to me, and he even went on to play for the Astros for a year or two. So I thought it was cool when he signed with the Astros. But there he is with the Rockies. That's the team that I know him as being with. A lot of people may know him as being with the Cubs because he did win the World Series with them. Milwaukee Brewers. This team, obviously the Brewers' namesake, just like the Rangers' namesake, were not in the golden age of baseball, but the team they were. They both were in the golden age. The franchises both began during that 60s decade. But we're not focusing on that for these specific namesakes of the team. I chose Hank Aaron for the Brewers just to mess with some people. I thought about Ryan Braun too, because he was the best player on that team. And Hank Aaron, throw people off a little bit. He was a good player. I didn't want to pick him for the Braves anyway, because he was the best player on the Braves. So yeah. Have a little fun. Toronto Blue Jays. Now, another team, not too much history, not too many guys of note. There have been some, Joe Carter, Jose Bautista, Jose Reyes, some players like that. But this guy right here played a few games during one season in 2012, and that was it. But I know this guy personally. He is the manager of the Auburn Alternative Baseball team. We have practices on every Thursday. So day after tomorrow, I'll be going over there to Auburn and practicing. This is Evan Crawford. I met him at a game in 2019, an alternative baseball game. He did pitch a little bit in that game. He signed a baseball for me. I still have it. And now his beard is thicker and he's got long hair. But, he's doing well for himself. I'm gonna need for him to teach me his curveball, because he likes me as a pitcher. Well, I saw a clip of his curveball. Dang, I'm gonna need to learn that if I want to pitch. Tampa Bay Rays. This is a team that I like. And there's been some players of note. There have. Evan Longoria is one that comes to mind. Brad Miller, another name. Kevin Kiermaier, also a good one, a center fielder at that. Their AA affiliate is the Montgomery Biscuits. And so this player is someone I saw at my first Biscuits game. Was the center fielder and was either batting leadoff or in the 3 hole. He's currently a free agent right now, but he did come up through the biscuits and get to the Rays. Mikey Matuk. I think he played mainly with the Tigers, at least for now. Hopefully he can make his way back into the league, or one of the two leagues. There's two leagues in Major League Baseball. But there he is in a Biscuits uniform, because that's where I know him as being from. All right, let's get to the real 60s teams here. We're going to start in the American League with the New York Yankees. By the way, the order these are in, no particular order whatsoever. I drew these all at random, and I got these mini helmets laid out on my desk in a completely random order. This is not a ranking of any kind. It's simply me naming my favorite players from each team. And again, favorite is sort of loose because I'm trying to pick some guys that aren't as well known. Right? For the New York Yankees, this is a guy I've gotten through the mail success from. A good Christian guy. Doesn't live too far away. In Sumter, South Carolina. Bobby Richardson. Right? He answered some of my questions, and then later on he signed a baseball for me. Only World Series MVP on the losing team. Right there. That's very interesting. Chicago White Sox. Very rich history, but this one was obviously a no-brainer if you've seen my videos or my streams before. Kim Berry. Talked to him on the phone a few times. I bought his book, read his book. I got some through the mail from him. So, definitely interesting connection I have with him. Obviously, if I know somebody personally, they're going to be my favorite from that team. Cleveland Indians. I'm referring to them as the Indians because I'm referring to the 60s when they were known as the Indians. If I was referring to current, then sure, I'd call them the Guardians. But they were the Indians at this time, and the players played for the Cleveland Indians at Lakefront Stadium. Not too rich of a history. Well, they have a rich history, but not necessarily a successful history in too many ways, particularly in the late 60s. But I did pick somebody between Sonny Siebert, and because he gave me a through-the-mail success, even though I didn't send any money. Sam McDowell, it's another Samuel in baseball. Luis Tiant, he got me a signed card through the mail. By the way, I'm not judging these all through the mail successes. In fact, this guy right here, I've sent to him twice, and he's not responded at all. Max Alvis, a good player. So you got the top three starting pitchers, and then Max Alvis, possibly the best player on the team. And, him and Rocky Colavito. But I'm going to go with this guy right here, Ken Harrelson. Good player. Played with the A's, Red Sox, and Indians. I do not think he was a very good broadcaster at all. Way too biased toward whatever team he was working with, mainly the White Sox. Really need to just tell the story of the game. Obviously, he seemed to enjoy himself, which is the most important part, so I won't begrudge him too much. Very interesting guy. Part of the reason I put him as my favorite Indians player from the 60s. But even the late Vin Scully gave a tip for broadcasters. You forget which team is writing you a check, which one is paying you. And you just tell the story, and you'll have a good, clean broadcast for all listeners, not just listeners who their favorite team is the one that's paying you, but also other fans as well, maybe the visiting team fans. You want to make it good for all of them. But as far as player-wise goes, Ken Harrelson is just fine in my books. And there he is with the Cleveland Indians, my favorite with them. Los Angeles Dodgers. I didn't mean for the background to be black. apologize for that. But it's fine. You can still see it. It actually kind of pops pretty nicely. This is pretty much a no-brainer. Rich history, but this is one of two guys I got a through-the-mail success with before I started sending self-addressed stamped envelopes. And this guy sent me a card with a baseball card inside and a really nice message. Maury Wills. Fleet-footed shortstop, very fast, stole a lot of bases. Reminds me of me, again. Fast guy, and guy likes to steal, guy likes to run. I didn't hit for too much power, but that was fine. That's just how the Dodgers played, and they somehow were successful with it. So that was the easy one for me to pick right there. San Diego Padres. I had between two players for this one. Al Santorini and Nate Colbert. Nate Colbert, obviously, best player on the team, power hitter. Padres picked him up from the Houston Astros in the 1968 expansion draft and never looked back. In fact, that'd have been interesting, my 1969 Astros What Could Have Been video. Instead of getting Clendenon, getting Don Clendenon, just go ahead and keep Nate Colbert around if you can, protect him. And there you go. You don't have to worry about Clendenon refusing a trade or anything. Nate Colbert just comes along, and he's young, so he just keeps quiet and does whatever he's told. He was really good too. But that's not what this video is about. Al Santorini, a pitcher, gave me a really nice through-the-mail return, signed baseball card, and answered a lot of my questions in detail. Hard to find pictures of him, though, which is okay. I found a couple. But I decided, even though he hadn't responded to mail yet, I'll go with Nate Colbert. Still the Padres home run king, career home run king. And I'm hoping that I'll get some mail back from him at some point. I may not. I may have to send to him again. But we'll see. Oakland A's. A vibrant history with this team. And good young players they had in the late 60s. Reggie Jackson, Joe Rudy, Rick Monday, Bert Campaneris, Sal Bando, Catfish Hunter, Raleigh Fingers, Dick Green, Ted Kubiak, Phil Roof, Gene Tennis. A lot of people to choose from. I decided to go with Rick Monday. I am hoping that he will return this photo that I sent him through the mail soon. It's been out for a little while now. Hopefully it won't be too much longer. That's the photo I sent him, and he looks pretty good. Decided to go with him. First draft pick ever, and an outfielder. Good bet. It's pretty good. San Francisco Giants. At first I was thinking Frank Johnson. He gave me a nice through-the-mail return. But I remember there's another guy that I've talked to on the phone, a Hall of Famer, whose career mainly consisted with this team. So I checked with the other two teams he played for in the 60s and made sure that he wasn't going to be my favorite player for one of those teams. I decided to go with him here. Orlando Cepeda. He's the one on the right. I included Willie Mays and Willie McCovey there. They're both from Alabama, so definitely respect for them. But the guy on the right there, Orlando Cepeda, he's the guy I'm going to consider my favorite for the San Francisco Giants. Obviously a good player, Hall of Famer. Talked to him on the phone before. He didn't have a whole lot to say, but still, he took the time out of his day. Cardinals, another team Orlando Cepeda played with. I went ahead and bumped them up so I could go ahead and pick out their favorite player of mine, which they also have a lot of good players to choose from. Lou Brock, Kurt Flood, Bob Gibson, Tim McCarver, Mike Shannon, Julian Javier, Dal Maxfield, and Roger Maris. My pick for them. Didn't pick him for the Yankees. So I'll pick him here. Obviously, still today is the single-season home run record holder for the American League. And went through a lot to get there. He didn't ask for all of it. He wasn't even trying to start up a bunch of mess, but he just found himself in it and powered through. And won the World Series in 1961 that year with the New York Yankees. A few years later, went to the Cardinals and got a fresh start for a couple of seasons. Definitely, I think that's a really good pick right there. Atlanta Braves, another team Orlando Cepeda played for. I decided to move up a little bit, go ahead and pick their favorite player. This one's not going to be Hank Aaron. I've already picked him for one team. Not that he can't be for another, but there's some other guys to choose from. Eddie Matthews, Joe Torre, Orlando Cepeda played for them as well. I'm not going to pick him again, though. Phil Niekro, Tony Cloninger. I'm going with Rico Carty. Now, he mainly wore 25, not 43, but this was a good photo I found for him. And he was a left fielder, not a first baseman. But Rico Carty, good player, really good. Battled tuberculosis through 1968. He missed that season because of it and came back and was still very good. And a guy not a whole lot of people know that much about. So I like him. I sent to him through the mail, but I doubt I'll get it back because I had to send it to the Dominican Republic. Their mail service is very sketchy. Oh well. Baltimore Orioles. Also a star-studded team here. You know, Don Buford, Paul Blair, Frank Robinson, Boog Powell, Andy Etchebarren, Elrod Hendricks, Dave Johnson, Mark Belanger, Jim Palmer, Dave McNally, Mike Cuellar, Tom Phoebus. But how can you not love this guy? Brooks Robinson, the human vacuum cleaner, gave me a nice through-the-mail return with an autograph for free. And known for his, obviously, legendary defense, but definitely had an above-average bat as well. As you can see him swinging it here. Gotta love Brooks Robinson, man. Gotta love Brooks Robinson. I don't guess you have to, but I think you should. Boston Red Sox. Alright? This is going to be an exception to my rule of picking the best player on the team. This guy right here, Carl Yastrzemski, got himself in really good shape before the 1967 season and lit it up in all phases of the game. I have his autobiography. I've read some parts of it. I really enjoy it. One of my favorite players during the 60s right here. So this was pretty easy as well. Doesn't sign anything through the mail. I'm planning on sending my questions to a private signing in November. But if it doesn't come back a success, I'm still going to respect them. Philadelphia Phillies. Right? Not going to pick the best player on the team, Dick Allen, this time. I'm going to go to the second best player on this team. Team that had one season where they could have had a lot of success in 1964. In fact, did have a lot of success, but let it all go for naught in the last few weeks of the season. Obviously, Dick Allen, Jim Bunning, Chris Short, Tony Taylor, Tony Gonzalez, Bobby Wine, led by Gene Mauch. A lot of good players. I'm going to go with Johnny Callison, a guy that a lot of people may or may not know about. Good outfielder. Fan favorite with the Phillies. Of course, you notice, between Johnny Callison and Dick Allen. Both were very good players. Callison was a fan favorite. Dick Allen was not. What's the difference between them? That's probably a big reason why Callison was a fan favorite, because compared to Allen, Callison was fairer in color. Philadelphia, man. But let's go to Minnesota and talk about the Twins here. See Minneapolis and St. Paul, Minnie and Saint right there shaking hands. Minnie and Paul. And this was a star-studded team if you ever saw one. Harmon Killebrew, Tony Oliva, Rod Carew, Bob Allison, Zolly Versailles, Ted Eulander, Cesar Tovar, Mudcat Grant, Jim Perry, Jim Cott, Jim Merritt, Ron Peronowski. I mean, you about had it all. And a lot of really good players. Also thinking between Mudcat Grant and Tony Oliva. Oliva's been inducted into the Hall of Fame this year, so he's getting more attention. So I would go with the late Mudcat Grant. He did send me a baseball card through the mail. I don't think his signature is even on it, but that's okay. Pitched very well for a few teams, including the Twins, what he's most known for. Chicago Cubs, another really good team. They put it together for one season, then let it all go for naught toward the end of it. Ernie Banks, Ron Santo, Billy Williams, Don Kessinger, Bill Hands, Ferguson Jenkins, Randy Hundley, and you name it. Cubs, rich history, not a very successful one, but a rich one. I'm going with another Alabamian here. A guy that I've gotten through the mail twice now. Both with autographs. Hasn't answered the questions, but has given me free autographs. One on a Hall of Fame plaque and one on a baseball card. Billy Williams. From the Mobile area. He doesn't live there now, but that's where he grew up. And good player, sweet swinging Billy Williams. Something interesting about the Cubs. Their helmet, the C logo is embroidered. It's a stitched logo, and then they stick it on there, on the helmet, and they write, you can't see it because of the quality of the photo, but they write the uniform number inside the C. That's interesting. Detroit Tigers, another star-studded team. Willie Horton, Mickey Stanley, Al Kaline, Bill Freehan, Don Wirt, Dick McAuliffe, Denny McClain, Mickey Lolich, Earl Wilson, led by Mayo Smith. You about had it all. Al Kaline was the one that first came to mind, but I figured, well, no, I can definitely pick another one out of this lineup. Go with the catcher and Michigan Wolverine, Bill Freehan. One of the greatest catchers, one of the most underrated catchers ever, overshadowed by Johnny Bench in the late 60s, early 70s. Doesn't really get the credit he deserves. So that's why I'm picking him now. Staying in the American League, Kansas City Royals. 1969, best player was Lou Piniella, although I'm not big on how much attitude he had, and still has. But it's hard to pick somebody else, you know? Looking around, it's hard to see. But I thought about it, and I'll just go ahead and go with their first home run leader, Mike Fiore. Still haven't received anything from him through the mail. But, I'll see. See what happens. In 1969, he led the Royals in home runs. A big reason why they were the best of the 4 expansion teams in 1969. Now let's go to the National League and go deep in the heart of Texas. Houston Astros. A team not star-studded necessarily, but maybe cloud-studded, some stars, but it's still a very good team here. Jimmy Wynn, Bob Watson, Doug Rader, Dennis Menke, Joe Morgan, Kurt Blefary, Rusty Staub, Larry Dierker, Don Wilson. They even had Mike Cuellar for a little while. I was thinking, well, between Dierker, Wynn, and Watson, I'm biased toward, I favor more position players just because I was one, so I'll take Dierker out, even though he did answer questions for me and sign a baseball through the mail. Jimmy Wynn, similar to my size, hit for power, head speed. Bob Watson, a little bigger, known for power. Decided I had to really think about this one, but I decided to go with Bob Watson. Young player coming up with the Astros. I bet he was fun to watch, to see him take over in the outfield. Going to the LA Angels. Again, try not to usually pick the best player on the team, but this player doesn't get enough credit as it is, even though he was the best on the team, the franchise player. And he is one of my favorites during this time period. And I even read an article saying that this guy, instead of Maury Wills, is the true shortstop of the 1960s. And I may try to put in the description of this video because it is convincing. Jim Fregosi. Yeah, true Angel from the beginning of his career with the expansion Angels. Was shocked when he was traded to the New York Mets for a guy that nobody had heard of really at the time, named Nolan Ryan. Ended up being a win for the Angels, but they did give up this guy right here. So it was still a loss. The team that Fregosi was traded to, the New York Mets, obviously when you think of the Mets in the 1960s, you're going to think of the 1969 Miracle Mets World Series championship team. A lot of good players here, not star-studded, but still some good players. Tom Seaver being a star, backed by Jerry Koosman and Nolan Ryan in the bullpen and Gary Gentry. Jerry Grody, Ed Kranepool, Bud Harrelson, Art Shamsky, Ed Charles, Cleon Jones, Tommy Agee, Ron Swoboda. Those three were the three that I considered for my favorite for the Mets. Jones and Agee, because they're Alabamians, and Swoboda, because he was good. Well, they all three were good. Agee wore his pants a little too low for me, didn't show as much of the stirrup sock. Cleon Jones, same sometimes, although he was a little bit better. So I decided to go with Ron Swoboda. Yeah, this is my video. I'll make the standards. I'll pick players how I want to. I haven't picked up his memoir yet, his book. When I sent to him through the mail, he said, I wrote a memoir that'll answer all your questions and more. And I haven't gotten it yet, but I'll try to. So yeah, good player right there. Cincinnati Reds. This one, a lot of good players on this team coming up. Starting rotation, you had Jim Loney and Gary Nolan. But then you also had, the hitting and defense was where the Reds really were powerful. Johnny Bench catching, Lee May at first base, Tommy Helms up the middle along with Alex Johnson. And Tony Perez and Pete Rose in the outfield. It's a case, again, trying not to pick the best player, but in this case, he's my favorite. Pete Rose. Hustled everywhere, just like I do. Like to run, like to hustle. See, just a really, really good player. Got to start with the Reds in the 60s. And I've been told I look like him too. And I sort of agree with that. So definitely going to go with Pete Rose here. Pittsburgh Pirates. All right. This will be the last National League team. Then we'll finish up with the American League for the final two. This one was an easy one. No, it's not Roberto Clemente or Wilver Stargell or Manny Sanguin. As great as those guys were. If you watched my videos before, you'll know that my paternal grandfather discharged a Pirates shortstop from the Air Force, Freddie Patek. That is my pick for Pirates' favorite player. I've talked to him on the phone as well. In fact, I'll be going to see my grandparents up there this weekend. My whole family's going up there. I don't know if I'll bring this story up again, but I don't know. We'll see about it. Patek definitely be my favorite player. 5'5", but he was still very good. He was capable of hitting home runs. He had a few at Forbes Field, a pretty large ballpark for, considering how old it was. But this one right here for the Pittsburgh Pirates, this was an easy one. Another easy one right here, going to the American League. The last easy one. Seattle Pilots, the one-year team. And my favorite here is not Jim Bowden because he wrote Ball 4. It's not going to be Jim Bowden. He's one of them, but he's not the favorite of mine. My favorite is an Alabamian, Don Mencher. Born and died in Huntsville, Alabama. What the heck? There he is at Sick's Stadium with the Seattle Pilots uniform on. And I've seen his grave up there before. I wish I could have met him. But he started with the Senators and Twins franchise, went to the Angels, the Pilots, and the A's. So he wore a few different good-looking uniforms during the 60s. This one was a no-brainer for me. Last team, Washington Senators. I don't really like this logo, but it's the one that I saw, the one that they had. That's okay. See the Capitol building back there. The picture right there. Didn't want to pick the best player, Frank Howard. Definitely a very big player, 6'7" tall, 300 pounds, just about. Could murder baseballs. He was known as the Capitol Punisher or the Washington Monument. Mike Epstein was kind of his sidekick, the second best player. Had a few other different young guys coming up under Ted Williams' managerial leadership. I was just thinking about this one while making this video. I'll go with a Mississippi State alum, Dell Unser. I went to Mississippi State University, and I like seeing where guys went to college. Don Kessinger for the Cubs, he went to Ole Miss, and I got intrigued in that a little bit. I had to get back on track, so I need to go back and look him up a little bit. Dell Unser, the Senators, made his big league debut April 10th, 1968. Keep that date in mind for the next one. Right. 1968, that's the year the Senators wore their best home wool uniform ever, I think. In my view. Red cap, if they just had the blue trim, the same way that their blue hats had red trim in years prior. Then the home uniform was white, and with that red with blue outline Senator script, but they had blue pinstripes. And Red Sox. Then you add the feather edge stripes to the Red Sox. Blue stripes, white feather edge. If you don't know what all that stuff means, just look it up and you should be able to get a good idea. Also, look at those piercing blue eyes. Take him. He's actually not bad looking. Anyway, we're going to do a bonus round. We're going to do my favorite 60s Major League Baseball umpire. Try not to pick the best, but this guy was the most well-known. And he's who I went with. Colorful, dapper, wore French cuff shirts, so he wore cufflinks, had his uniform neatly pressed, would fold everything after a game, when a lot of other guys would just throw it in the locker and go home because they knew it was going to be cleaned. Emmett Ashford here wanted to take care of everything and really dedicate himself to his craft that he very much enjoyed. You go watch video of him working games, calling games. You see his mechanics. He's just having fun. Made his debut also in Washington, D.C., just like Dale Unser, almost exactly 2 years prior to Unser, April 11th, 1966. So just a day's difference. Just a day shy of 2 years. So a year and 364 days. Assuming there's not a leap year in there. I don't know. But there you go. My favorite players from all the 1960s Major League Baseball teams. And some of the reasons why. And even covered some of the expansion teams too. So, hopefully you enjoyed this video right here. I know it's a long one, but hopefully you took the time to watch it. I will see y'all next time.